Texas, Arizona State meeting up in Atlanta, Georgia, Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, and it's going down January 1st, New Year's Day, 1 p.m. Eastern Time. That's on Wednesday, guys. Throw you a little curveball. Texas is a 14-point favorite in this one. The over-under now is set at 51.5. There's some 52s out there, 51s probably. Right around that key number of 51. The line is moving towards Texas. The over-under has been pretty stagnant for the most part, maybe ticking upward a bit. This one really comes down to a couple of things for me, Mason. We know how good this Texas defense is. We know it's really good. I think Clemson did a pretty nice job of being able to manufacture some passing yards. I thought Cade Klubnik made some really clutch throws this past week against Texas. But Clemson was missing the running game, and it came back to bite them. Kind of really stalled out there at the end, and that Texas defense has really just been kind of a python, if you will, right? Just strangling opponents this season, and have done a pretty good job of that. But the biggest question for me and for Texas being able to win and cover this lofty spread here in this matchup, can they continue to run the football at the clip that we saw in the past game against Clemson, nearly 300 yards rushing in that football game? And we've seen glimpses of something like this with Texas being able to run the ball, but it's been against some lesser opponents, and it's been which has been most of what Texas has played, minus playing Georgia twice and playing Clemson. Right there hasn't been another ranked opponent for Texas this season. So you've seen Texas kind of be able to, take almost like a spring approach to some of these games and really work on some things offensively. And I feel like we've seen that a lot. We've seen a lot of tinkering, right? And I think that Texas's offensive success solely is going to be based upon them being able to run the football. When this team is able to run the football, they score a bunch of points. When they are not able to run the football, they don't score a bunch of points. I mean, it just is what it is. And Mason, it's not any surprise. I mean, whenever you're in the red zone, you need a run game. It's not a secret. And whenever teams know that you don't have a run game and that's not an option in the red zone, it changes everything. The field gets much smaller. The coverage gets much tighter. And it's no wonder. I mean, it doesn't matter if Tom Brady was back there. The windows are tight. And I feel like, there's been tons of talk about Ewers and Arch, and I think Ewers is the quarterback, and I think that's not going to change in this playoffs. I don't think, unless there's a big injury, obviously. You're not going to see Arch Manning have a major role, I don't think. Maybe he plays second half if somehow this game ends up a blowout. We saw tons of blowouts last week, so I'm not saying it's impossible. We know about the Texas defense, but what about the Arizona State defense? It's not bad, Mason. It's not terrible. Now, it's not great against the pass, 63rd in the country, but they're 29th in the country against the run. And I think that's good enough to be able to at least somewhat make Texas a little more one-dimensional. I'm not saying that Arizona State is going to be able to come in here and stuff Texas up like Georgia did, okay? Because both times we've seen Texas play Georgia, 13 sacks, 20 tackles for loss, 80 total yards rushing in those two games. I mean, the rush game was putrid against Georgia. We all know that Arizona State doesn't have those types of guys along the defensive line and in that linebacker room. We would consider that Georgia linebacker room to be one of the best in the country when they're healthy, right? So, no, that's no smoke at Texas or anything like that. I'm just, kind of stating the obvious here, right? I think Texas they're going to have their work cut out for them against this defensive line of Arizona State. This defensive line is the strength of this team's defense. Now, Texas is so fast, and where we saw a lot of success with them running the football was off of the edges. So, what do you get from those outside linebackers from Arizona State? I don't know. We're going to see. I have Arizona State's schedule pulled up right here, and Mason, I mean, it wasn't necessarily a murderer's row. Now, you did a couple of wins against BYU, Kansas State. Those are quality opponents. So I don't want to, I don't want to take anything off of the resume. And obviously, Iowa State there in the championship game was a quality opponent. But, um, you know, some of these teams, I mean, Mississippi State, um, Texas State's actually pretty good for their classification and everything. But you win that one 31-28. They lost to Texas Tech 30-22 earlier this season, lost to Cincinnati. I mean, those are a couple of pretty bad losses there, man. Just not real good. I mean, Texas Tech isn't bad. I'm not saying they're bad or whatever, but um, I don't know. This is a big step up in competition that Arizona State really just hasn't seen this season, man. I mean, or really anything like it. There's some absolute freaks out there on the field for Texas, and they're going to see whenever Texas gets on the field the size discrepancy here, and it's a pretty big one. So I'm interested to see. There's going to have to be some finesse to this Kenny Dillingham offense for Arizona State. Got to get Skattebo going. Got to get him catching passes out of the backfield. He's the second leading receiver for this team this season, and he's got to be first and foremost on the mind of this offense, and he certainly will be on the minds of the Texas defense. Tyson, he's out indefinitely. That was the leading receiver this year. He had 75 receptions. Nobody was even close to that. I think Skattebo has 36 receptions or something like that. So the next leading receiver had half as much, and the next leading receiver was a running back. So we saw some guys step up for Arizona State in the Big 12 championship game. They're going to have to continue to do that, man. It was Stovall and Guillory. Those two guys are going to have to continue to step up and be in a little bit of an uncomfortable situation going against this Texas secondary, who I think is one of the best, if not the best, definitely top 3 in the country. It's going to be tough sledding as far as getting those wide receivers open, especially considering the injuries. We'll see what Sam Levitt is able to do. Kenny Dillingham is an absolute mastermind with the X's and O's, so I think he'll have a scheme cooked up. We'll see how successful it is and what adjustments Texas is going to be able to make. But I think the approach from Texas defense is going to be, let's stack the box and make them throw against what we've got back here in the back, and we'll see how that works out for them. What are your thoughts on this one, Mason?
Well, I'm looking at Arizona State, and while I do think they are built offensively in a way that could potentially exploit Texas's defense, and what I mean by that is in the run game with Cam Skattebo, um, I do think that that plays to Texas's um, weakness on defense, and I could see some points being scored on the back of Cam Skattebo, um, but this is a huge step up in competition, and I don't think that and I always butcher his name, but the defensive coordinator for Texas,
Kwiatkowski, yeah.
Kwiatkowski, um, I don't think that he is going to allow Cam Skattebo to win this football game or to score 4 touchdowns like that. That's not going to be doable. So Sam Levitt, who's been a good quarterback, I think he was a great get. I believe he came over from Michigan State, if I'm not mistaken, when with the new coaching regime coming in. Um, I think he's been really good. He's been a really solid quarterback. Past couple of games, he's completed over 70% of his passes. Can he do it against this secondary for Texas? Because the secondary for Texas probably doesn't get enough attention for whatever reason, but it is definitely, to me, the strength of their defense. It is the strength of that side of the football, probably the strength of the entire team because they are a defensive led team. And without having Tyson to throw to, I've got some serious concerns on Arizona State's ability to pass the football. If they can't pass the football, and I already told you, Kwiatkowski's not going to allow Skattebo to absolutely just win this game. You can scheme a defense up and stop the run, right? You can put 10 in the box if you want, right? And that's kind of my point. They load the box, play man on the outsides. There's not a threat on the outside for Arizona State. Not at least not one that you feel you have to double cover or anything like that. Show then it allows you to show man, play cover or play zone, I guess, um, and throw the quarterback off and go for an interception. So I think that I think that Kwiatkowski is going to kind of have sort of a masterclass here defensively. Um, and if Arizona State's not scoring, I think Texas is going to be able to just run kind of right down the throat of Arizona State. And I'm not saying that they're just going to score 70 points and win 70 to nothing. But I do think that we saw Texas commit to the run game this past week against Clemson, and it worked out for them, right, to the tune of almost 300 yards. And Steve Sarkisian said in the half game interview by the reporter, he said, "Yeah, we haven't committed to the run all year, and now we've decided to do that." And they kind of did what they want against Clemson. I don't. I think Arizona State's run defense is better than Clemson's, but I don't think it's that much better. Um, they may hold Texas to 200 yards instead of 300, which is still a great game on the ground for the Longhorns. But to me, it with the defense playing like it does, and without having a legitimate threat on the offensive side of the football for Arizona State, and I know Cam Skattebo is really, really good, but again, going back to my point, they're gonna load the box, right? And take him out of the equation. So with both of those things, I think that Texas can play as vanilla as they want on offense, run the football, maybe get Arch Manning involved, run some RPOs, and win this football game, 27-13. You know, I really think that that's the recipe for success for Texas. And I'm really struggling to find ways that Arizona State wins this football game without it being the traditional, the common get turnovers and score on special teams. I mean, of course, there are some freaky ways that Arizona State can win this football game, but I don't see the obvious answer being Cam Skattebo is the second best running back in college football. Um, I don't see him having a ton of success. It's kind of what I'm getting at, and I don't see an option in the passing game for Arizona State to just air it out. And even if they did have that, Texas's defensive secondary is the best in the country, and or at least the best. It's the best unit on their team, and I think that Arizona State would struggle to score regardless. I'm struggling to draw any ways that the Arizona State could win this football game. To be honest with you, Mark, and for that, I would have Texas cover in a 14-point spread, even as big of a spread as that is. That's kind of that's kind of what we've been seeing with these games, right? Where one team is more heavily outmatched than the other. So give me Texas to cover in this one.
I think it's super important for Arizona State if they want to. Obviously, they want to, but if they want to stay in this game, at least into halftime, into the second half of this one, you've got to be able to hit something early. And Kenny Dillingham is a master, man. I'm telling you. I mean, and I feel like Arizona State had some momentum. Now they haven't played football in a while, right? They've been sitting at home, hopefully getting healthy or as healthy as you can get. That those first couple of drives are going to be really, really important. I feel like for Arizona State, you've got to be able to hit something to be able to back that Texas defense up. Because you're right. I mean, Kwiatkowski is obviously going to commit to stopping Skattebo, and we'll see where that leads. The best teams in the country go out there and see what the defense is going to give them. And in this case, I think what you're probably going to get to start the game. We'll see. Um, we've been wrong before, and sometimes these coaches I feel like kind of second guess themselves. So we'll see. Texas may feel like they can, stop. They can stop Arizona State without bringing a bunch of pressure and without stopping the box. So I'm interested to see how they play that. And obviously if Texas can do that, then it's set up shop and just have a field day, right? For Texas. So we'll see what happens. I think Arizona State needs to hit a big play. Come on, Arizona State. I'm rooting for you. I am rooting for you in this one. Don't let me down.